She was only there to clean the floor. Nobody in that room even looked at her. To them, she was invisible. A maid. Nothing more.
But that day, the old woman everyone feared, the grandmother of the richest man in the city, stopped the whole family with one sentence. I choose her. The rich woman in the red gown laughed first. The maid. Mama, are you joking?
But grandmother did not smile. She did not blink. She looked straight at the girl and said it again. I said, I choose her to be his wife.
Nobody knew why. Nobody knew what the old woman had seen. But by the end of this story, every single person laughing in that room will beg that maid for forgiveness. Stay with me.
She was only there to clean the floor. Nobody in that room even looked at her. To them, she was invisible. A maid. Nothing more. But that day, the old woman everyone feared, the grandmother of the richest man in the city, stopped the whole family with one sentence. I choose her. The room went silent. The rich woman in the red gown laughed first. The maid? Mama, are you joking? But grandmother did not smile. She did not blink. She looked straight at the girl holding the cleaning cloth, and said it again. I said, I choose her to be his wife. Nobody knew why. Nobody knew what the old woman had seen. But by the end of this story, every single person laughing in that room will beg that maid for forgiveness. Stay with me. This story will break your heart, and then heal it. The compound was full of cars. Big cars. Cars that cost more than most people would earn in 10 years. Inside the mansion, chandeliers dropped light onto marble floors. Servants moved quietly, careful not to make a sound. In the middle of it all sat Eneniades, grandmother of the Obiora family. Small in body. Big in power. Everyone in that family feared her more than they feared their own father. Beside her sat her grandson, Kelechi Obiora. 32 years old. Owner of hotels, banks, and buildings across 3 countries. But in this house, he was still just the boy to his grandmother. And in the corner, almost forgotten, stood a girl named Amara. She wore a plain gray uniform. She held a cleaning cloth in her hand. She had worked in that house for 2 years, cleaning floors, washing plates, ironing clothes nobody thanked her for. Nobody in that room looked at her. Until Eneniades spoke. Kelechi, the old woman said, it is time for you to marry. Kelechi sighed. Mama, not this again. I am not asking you again, she said. I am telling you. And I have already chosen. The room went still. Kelechi's aunties leaned forward. His cousin, Kayamika, smiled, already certain the choice would be her. Who, Mama? Kayamika asked sweetly. Is it me? Eneniades did not even look at her. She lifted her walking stick, slowly, and pointed it across the room. At Amara. Her, the old woman said. I choose her. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Then the room exploded with laughter and shock. Auntie Ngozi, Kelechi's father's sister, laughed so hard she had to hold the wall. The maid, she said. Mama, you want our son to marry a maid? Kayamika's smile disappeared. Her face turned red. This is a joke, she said. This girl mops our floors. She is nobody. Amara stood frozen. Her hands were shaking. The cleaning cloth fell from her fingers onto the marble floor. Please, Amara whispered, I did not ask for this. I don't want any trouble. Trouble? Auntie Ngozi snapped. You are the trouble. Standing there like you belong in this family. Know your place, Kayamika hissed at her. Those 3 words would follow Amara through the rest of this story. Know your place. Kelechi finally spoke, his voice sharp. Enough. But his grandmother raised her hand before he could say more. I did not ask any of you, Ananiades said calmly. I asked my grandson to trust me. And I have made my choice. But Mama, Kelechi started. You wanted a wife who will love you, the old woman said, looking straight into his eyes. Not a wife who will love your money. This girl has cleaned this house for 2 years. Tell me, has she ever asked you for anything? Kelechi went quiet. Because the truth was, she never had. 3 weeks earlier, nobody had known this story. But Ananiades had seen something the rest of the family never noticed. One rainy night, Ananiades had fallen sick. Very sick. The kind of sick that frightens an old woman. The family was away at a business event in Abuja. Only Amara was in the house. Amara did not call a driver and wait for permission. She did not think about her small salary or her low position. She wrapped the old woman in a blanket, carried her to the gate herself, and stopped a taxi in the rain because the family car was not there. At the hospital, she sat outside grandmother's room the whole night. She did not sleep. She did not eat. When a nurse asked if she was family, Amara simply said, She is like my own mother. I don't have another mother left to call. Grandmother had heard those words through the door. She never forgot them. While the rest of the family sent flowers and apologies the next morning, Amara was the one who had stayed awake all night holding an old woman's hand in fear. That was the night Ananiades decided. Not because Amara was rich. Not because Amara was powerful. Because Amara was real. The family tried everything to change grandmother's mind. But Ananiades was not a woman who changed her mind. That night, Kelechi found Amara sitting alone outside the kitchen, still shaking. I'm sorry, he said quietly. About what happened in there. Amara looked up, eyes red. I never asked for this, sir. Please believe me. I know, Kelechi said. My grandmother does nothing without a reason. Your family hates me now, Amara whispered. I only wanted to keep my job. Now I may lose even that. Kelechi sat down near her, not as her boss, but as a man seeing her clearly for the first time. You won't lose your job, he said. And you won't lose your dignity either. Not while I'm here. Amara wiped her face quickly, embarrassed to be seen crying. You don't have to be kind to me because your grandmother said so. I'm not being kind because she said so, Kelechi replied. I'm being kind because it's true. You cared for her when no one else did. That is not something I forget. For the first time, Amara looked at him, really looked at him, not as the rich man's son, but as a person. I only wanted peace, she said softly. That's all I have ever wanted. Those words stayed in his heart. Days passed. The wedding plans, forced by the grandmother, moved forward, but slowly, carefully, respectfully. Kelechi gave Amara a small guest room in the estate, away from the noise of the main house, away from the sharp eyes of his aunties. In the evenings, he would knock softly on her door, not as a master checking on a maid, but as a man checking on someone he was beginning to care for. You don't have to keep working, he told her one evening. Rest. Please. If I stop working, Amara said, I will feel like a stranger in this house. Working is the only thing that feels normal to me now. He smiled gently. Then let me work beside you. Just for tonight. She laughed, a real laugh, the first one he had heard from her. A billionaire, washing plates? A man, he corrected her, washing plates beside a woman he respects. They spent that evening in the kitchen together, laughing quietly, talking about small things, her village, her mother who had passed years ago, her dream of one day opening a small tailoring shop. I never told anyone that dream before, Amara admitted. Why not? Because dreams like that sound foolish to people with money. Kelechi shook his head slowly. They don't sound foolish to me. They sound honest. For the first time in years, Amara felt something she had almost forgotten. Safety. But peace never lasts long in a house full of jealousy. Kayamika could not accept losing her place to a maid. She began spreading rumors through the family, through their society friends, even through the staff. She only wants his money, Kayamika told everyone who would listen. She probably poisoned grandmother's tea to make her sick that night, just so she could play the hero. The rumor spread fast. Cruel words always do. At a family dinner, Auntie Ngozi looked at Amara with disgust as she served the table, old habits refusing to die. Sit down and eat like a normal person, Auntie Ngozi said coldly, or continue serving us like the maid you truly are. Marriage does not wash away where you come from. Amara's hands trembled as she placed the last plate on the table. I was only trying to help, the way I always have. Helping is what maids do, Kayamika snapped. Wives sit at the table. But you will always stand at the door. You married poverty into wealth. It does not mix. The whole table went silent. Kalechi's jaw tightened. That is enough, he said sharply. Is it, though? Kayamika said, standing. Or are we all just pretending she belongs here because grandmother is too old and stubborn to admit her mistake? Ananiades slammed her walking stick on the floor. You will not speak of my choice as a mistake in my presence, she said, her voice shaking with quiet fury. This girl has shown more loyalty in 2 years than this entire family has shown me in 20. Kayamika's face went pale, but her pride would not let her back down. Time will show the truth, Mama, she said, storming out. Money always exposes people like her. Amara stood frozen, humiliated once again in front of the family. She excused herself quietly and walked to her room, tears finally falling once the door was closed. That night, Kalechi found her sitting by the window, staring into the dark compound. You should go back to your family, she said before he could speak. Marry someone your family approves of. I don't want to be the reason this family breaks apart. You are not breaking this family apart, Kalechi said firmly. Their pride is breaking this family apart. They will never accept me, Amara whispered. I will always be the maid to them. Even if I wear a wedding ring, even if I sit at their table, in their eyes, I will always be beneath them. Kalechi knelt beside her chair so their eyes were level. Do you know what my grandmother told me the night she chose you? Amara shook her head. She said, a person who serves you with a full heart when they have nothing to gain, will love you the same way when they have everything to lose. She wasn't testing your class, Amara. She was testing your heart. And you passed without even knowing you were being tested. Amara's tears fell freely now, but they felt different this time, not from pain, but from being truly seen. I only wanted peace, she said again, the words she always returned to. Then let me be your peace, Kalechi said softly. Let me protect what my family refuses to. While the family fought over class and pride, something strange began happening around Amara that even she did not fully understand. One afternoon, a delivery man arrived at the estate with an envelope for Kalechi. When he saw Amara standing near the gate, he immediately dropped his head respectfully. Good afternoon, Ma, he said nervously. I did not know Madam would be the one to receive this. Amara blinked, confused. I'm not. I'm just staying here. The man looked even more uncomfortable, as though he had said too much, and hurried away. Days later, at the hotel Kalechi owned downtown, Amara visited briefly to bring him lunch. The security guards at the entrance, men who usually barely glanced at visitors, straightened their posture and opened every door for her without being asked. You don't have to do that, Amara said, embarrassed. Orders from Oga Kalechi himself, Ma, one guard replied. You are to be treated as family in every property he owns. Amara did not understand yet how deep those instructions ran. That evening, she noticed Kalechi's ring, a simple black band she had assumed was ordinary, engraved with initials she did not recognize, K.O., founder. Founder of what? She asked. Kalechi only smiled. One day, you will see everything. For now, just trust that you are safe. Amara did not push further. But deep inside, a quiet question began to grow. Who exactly was the man she was about to marry? Even Kelechi's own parents, who had been distant and cold at first, began behaving strangely gentle toward Amara, almost cautious, almost afraid to offend her. At a small gathering, Kelechi's father pulled Amara aside quietly. "Whatever my sister and niece say to you," he said, his voice low, "please remember, my mother has never once, in 30 years, chosen wrong. If she chose you, then you are the wife this family needs, whether they understand it yet or not." "Sir, why does everyone speak as if there is something more to this?" Amara asked, her curiosity finally breaking through. Kelechi's father only smiled sadly. "Some truths are not mine to tell. Ask my son when the time is right." Amara walked away from that conversation more confused than ever, but one thing had become clear. Everyone around her seemed to know something she did not. The wedding day arrived faster than anyone expected. Grandmother had insisted there be no long delay, before this family finds another way to poison what is pure. The ceremony was held at the Obiora Grand Hotel, the most luxurious hotel in the city, its ballroom filled with powerful guests, business partners, and society figures. Amara stood nervously in a simple, elegant white gown grandmother had personally chosen for her, nothing like the diamond-covered gowns Kayamika had mocked her for not being able to afford. As guests arrived, whispers spread through the crowd. "Is that really the maid? I heard she trapped him. Poor Kelechi. His grandmother has embarrassed this family." Kayamika, uninvited but present anyway as a cousin, could not resist one final attack. She walked up to Amara in front of a group of elegant guests, holding a glass of champagne with false sweetness. "You really did it," Kayamika said loudly enough for others to hear. "From mop and bucket to wedding gown. Impressive climbing, for someone with nothing." Amara's chest tightened, but she held her composure. "I didn't climb anything. I was simply given a chance to be seen." "Seen?" Kayamika laughed cruelly. "You will always be the maid who got lucky in this family's eyes. Never forget that, no matter what dress they put on you." The guests around them went quiet, uncomfortable, watching the humiliation unfold in real time. Then, suddenly, the grand doors of the ballroom opened. A group of senior hotel management staff, board members, and the hotel's general manager walked in briskly, followed closely by 2 uniformed officials, and the entire room fell into stunned silence. The general manager walked straight past Kelechi, straight past the confused guests, and stopped in front of Amara. He bowed his head respectfully. "Madam," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "on behalf of the entire Obiora Hospitality Group, welcome. As of this morning, your name has been added as co-owner of this hotel, per Chairman Kelechi Obiora's instruction." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kayamika's champagne glass nearly slipped from her hand. "Chairman? What is he talking about?" Kelechi stepped forward, taking Amara's hand gently, and turned to face the stunned crowd. "Many of you have known me for years as a businessman," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Some of you knew me as the quiet Obiora son who preferred to work behind closed doors rather than chase headlines. What most of you never knew, what I never advertised, is that I built this hotel chain from nothing, starting with one small guesthouse 15 years ago, when this family still doubted me as much as they doubt Amara today." He looked directly at Kayamika. "You called her a maid who got lucky," he said. "But she never once knew who I truly was when she cared for my grandmother that night in the rain. She never once asked what I owned, what I could give her, or what she could gain from me. She showed kindness when she believed she had everything to lose and nothing to gain." He turned to the crowd. "You called her a gatekeeper," he said, his voice rising slightly. "Now you stand inside her hotel too, because as of this morning, this woman you mocked owns half of everything I have built." The room was utterly silent. Auntie Ngozi's face had drained of all color. Kayamika stood frozen, her mouth slightly open, unable to form words. Eneni Adiz, sitting proudly at the front, allowed herself the smallest, most satisfied smile. "I told you," the old woman said quietly, mostly to herself. A heart cannot be faked. The reveal spread through the ballroom like fire. Guests who had whispered insults minutes earlier now scrambled to offer congratulations, their voices suddenly warm and respectful. Kayamika, humiliated in front of the very society she had tried so hard to impress, rushed toward Amara, her earlier confidence completely gone. "Amara, please," she said quickly, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes, "I was only joking earlier. You know how family teases each other." Amara said nothing at first. She simply looked at her, not with hatred, but with a quiet, tired understanding. "You told me to know my place," Amara said softly. "I have always known my place. I have never pretended to be more than I am. The question is, do you know yours?" Kayamika had no answer. Auntie Ngozi, desperate to save face, attempted the same forced kindness. "We are family now, my dear. Let us start fresh." "Family does not humiliate family in front of strangers," Amara replied calmly, "and expect forgiveness the moment the truth changes their comfort. But I am not a cruel person. I forgive easily. I simply do not forget easily." The room, still watching, seemed to understand exactly what those words meant. The wedding continued, but Amara felt strangely hollow that night. Later, alone with Kalechi on the hotel balcony overlooking the city lights, she finally voiced what had been sitting in her heart. "You should have told me," she said quietly. "All of it. Before today. Before I had to learn who you really were in front of 100 strangers." Kalechi lowered his head. "You're right. I'm sorry. Do you know how it felt?" Amara continued, her voice trembling. "To not know if you cared for me, or if you were testing me too, like your grandmother did." "I never tested you," Kalechi said firmly, taking her hands. "I hid my wealth because I needed to know if you would love the man, not the empire. Every rich woman who ever came near me only saw numbers in their eyes. I was afraid, Amara. Afraid that if you knew, you would look at me differently too. I would never." "I know that now," he said gently. "But I didn't know it then. And for that fear, I made you walk into humiliation without protection. I made you feel small in a room I could have silenced with one sentence, at any moment, and I chose silence instead. I am truly sorry." Amara looked out at the city lights, tears slowly falling. "I only wanted peace," she whispered once more. "Not riches. Not hotels. Just peace, and someone who sees me." "I see you," Kalechi said, turning her gently to face him. "I have always seen you. Even before you knew there was anything worth seeing in me." Slowly, the hurt in her eyes softened. Over the following weeks, the family that had once mocked Amara began to change, not from fear of her wealth, but from genuine reflection on their own cruelty. Kayamika, humiliated publicly and abandoned by the social circle that had only respected her for proximity to money, finally came to Amara alone, without an audience, without pretense. "I was jealous," she admitted quietly, tears finally real. "You had something I never had, genuine kindness. I mocked you because deep down, I knew I could never compete with someone who didn't need to compete at all." "You didn't need to compete with me," Amara said gently. "There was never a race." "I know that now," Kayamika whispered. "I'm sorry, Amara. Truly." Amara studied her for a long moment, then extended her hand, not out of obligation, but out of the same genuine heart that had built her entire journey. "Then let us start again," Amara said. "Properly, this time." Months later, the Obiora family compound looked different, not because the walls had changed, but because the atmosphere inside them had. Amara, now recognized throughout the city not as the maid who got lucky but as a respected co-owner of one of the country's largest hospitality groups, had quietly opened a small tailoring academy on the outskirts of the estate, her old dream, finally alive, training young girls from poor backgrounds who reminded her of who she used to be. Ananiadi sat on her favorite chair on the veranda, watching Amara teach a group of young girls how to sew, laughter drifting through the compound. Kalechi joined his grandmother, sitting beside her quietly. "You knew all along, didn't you, Mama?" he asked. That she was the one. The old woman smiled, her eyes soft with memory. I did not choose her because she cleaned floors, my son. I chose her because when everyone else in this house was too busy protecting their comfort, she was the only one who protected me. She looked at him fully now. Wealth builds houses, Nned said. But love like hers builds homes. Never forget the difference. Kalechi looked out at Amara, laughing gently with the young girls she was teaching, sunlight falling softly across her face. He smiled. I won't, Mama, he said quietly. I never will. She came into that house with nothing but a cleaning cloth in her hand. She left it as the heart that held an entire family together. They called her just the maid. But in the end, she was the only one in that house who truly understood what love, loyalty, and peace were worth. And sometimes, the ones the world overlooks, are exactly the ones love chooses first.